So, as we all saw from this room, we've all failed once, we've all survived it. So why are we so terrified of doing it when it can lead to so much creativity, innovation, and ultimately breakthroughs? So I'm going to hand it over to the panelists. Please introduce yourself. And at the end of that, can you share a moment or a project where failure led to a significant learning or a breakthrough or that aha moment of growth? And we'll start with you, Elizabeth.
Hi, I'm Scallon. My day job is I work at HP, helping to create new ventures, new businesses for HP. I also teach at the University of Washington. So if you're ever bored and you want to actually come in and give lectures to students, let me know. I'm always looking for fantastic innovators and entrepreneurs to give real life lessons to students. I think for us with failure, everything's always about an iteration, right? And so for me, always having a hypothesis to go test, I think is really key. And then getting that in front of customers immediately. I thought earlier this year, I was on to a new form factor, and I was like, oh, this is going to be a great form factor. This is, this is going to solve a real use case, and I have the problem. I had all these ideas in my head of how it's going to be $1 billion company and a good business and everything. And then I went out and I talked to customers, and immediately they're like, I hate this thing. I'm going to lose it. I don't like it. What are you doing? I was like, thank you, right? It was like, immediately was able to pivot, understand what their actual needs were. My entire hypothesis and all the research that I did had some hint of that, but the track that I originally was on was a huge failure. And so I was able to pivot, and then now, have created something much better. But to me, failure is always just those iterations for that next thing that you're going to do. And so failure to me is never like one and done. It's always like, oh, great learning lessons. How do I now apply that to the next thing?
Wow, that was nice.
Failure is a draft one. I love it.
I have to equalize the same energy. I have to try to be as energetic as you. Okay, Nick Rosa. I am Italian. I spent the last 14 years in London, 7 of which building the metaverse practice from scratch at Accenture. And 2 years ago, I published this book called Understanding the Metaverse, a Business and Ethical Guide with the forewords of Professor Tom Furness. As you can imagine, my failure was directly connected with the implosion of the metaverse business a couple of years ago, 1 year and a half ago. I published a book. I was traveling the world. I was leading probably one of the largest, biggest team in the world about the metaverse. And when the metaverse imploded and Accenture decided to dismantle the full team, my heart was shattered because I thought that was my baby, and the team was left home, and a lot of people have been made redundant. And with my huge disappointment, I had to decide what to do with my life because I didn't want to stay in a team that was dying and in a technology that basically was dying as well. Not dying, but that was a sort of a swear word at that time, metaverse. So I took a leap of faith. I went to another team, which is the team where I am right now, which is the innovation team for consumer products and retail, which is a global team. And now I'm leading the technology innovation offerings for this team, which gives me the chance not only to work with some exciting technologies like generative AI, and I'm directing the generative AI studio there is in Milan for consumer products and retail, but also to move back and work again with immersive technologies, which is now spatial computing for all of you that don't know. It's reborn from the ashes like a phoenix, and I couldn't be happier. It's great to be there, and it's refreshing. So, don't be afraid. It's part of the process. It's a very real thing that is going to very much happen in all of your lives. Failure is part of the life. We need to embrace it. The important is just going. Thank you.
So John Lee, I am currently based in Seattle, but actually was raised in Vancouver and spent most of my career in San Francisco. Worked in payments at Visa and then moved to Seattle for Amazon. Actually, we may have crossed paths a little bit at Alexa, and then most recently at Alphabet, working at a Google X project called Wing, which is drone delivery. And then today I'm leading an initiative at a venture studio called Panelists Labs in Seattle, where we help large companies build startups. And a lot of failure lessons there. Most of my background has actually been in the strategic partnerships. So I feel like I fail on a regular basis every time. You get a rejection from a partner or you get setbacks and delays. Happens a lot in my area. And I'd say the most it happened was probably at Google X and working on drone delivery, very new tech. It's obviously not in market in most places. And I just remember, like in the 2 years, I had so many dark moments where I was like, this thing is not going anywhere. Like there was no customers, we had all the regulatory setbacks, and it just felt like we were on this spiral downwards. And I just remember telling my team, like, we just have to continue getting out there, right? Just continue pressure testing our product market fit. And eventually there was a glimmer of hope, and that hope came from a very large partner who is public today, DoorDash, and you just started to see the steps coming through. And I think the biggest lesson I learned there was in those moments not to necessarily give up, but just continue pushing forward. Not obviously pushing forward if you don't think there's any like product market fit and you're just getting like a bunch of no's. I think it's to keep on pushing for it if you do see that there could be value that you're offering to a customer. And that's what we offered to DoorDash. It was a lower cost way for them to deliver. And then fast forward to the next customer. And so I'd say, for the team, it was really about staying positive about what we had, trying to find where we fit in the ecosystem around delivery. I think we walked away in a much better position, and it's always that lesson that even when you're in this dark place, that like the light is literally around the corner. And sometimes just hanging on, and literally in the span of like 6 months, things went 180, and we were successful.
So I want to pull on that thread a little bit, and it's something that also Nick said. When you were both facing those no's, how did you help support your teams and get them to really embrace failure as part of that innovation process? And Nick especially, I want you to jump in after and talk about how you built that resilience in your team after having been so crushed beforehand. So maybe we could start with Jung first and then jump to Nick.
Yeah, I think it's, like most cases, providing the North Star. And when we set out on the venture, we obviously had this goal, but we also had a vision of what the future state could look like. If drone delivery, for some folks, it seems kind of scary to see these drones flying around your neighborhoods. But we actually had it in a very micro environment in Australia where there were communities adopting the technology, and we had the ability to get this feedback early on. And it helped us to create a vision that we used back here with a lot of our partners, and like I mentioned with DoorDash and eventually with Walmart, is we had to create that story for them. Like, what could this look like if we were to have drone delivery? And it's not as scary as, and I have to say 99% of the conversations I had, everyone talked about Minority Report and having drones like invade your privacy and, like chase you down the street. And we had to create that vision for ourselves, and that North Star helped keep us going despite all the failures. We knew that what we were trying to sell in was something that was pretty radical, that as long as we believed in that vision, we carried that with us, and that gave us the strength and persistence that helped us achieve our goals.
So I'm hearing persistence was key there. Nick, did you want to jump in?
Yeah, I think it's links up to what I was saying before. Failing is a very real possibility that everyone in this room is gonna face sooner or later. It's gonna happen, no matter what. You can't always win. There are degrees failure, so there's no everything white, everything black. So there are different degrees of failure. And I think that probably, the team I've been very, very, very lucky because the team I was working in and I was leading, I was basically leading all the European and east of the world bit of the team, while there was another lead that was leading North America. Was composed by extremely bright people. You've seen one of them before on stage, Kaitley. And you can imagine that's, leaving those people without a perspective and a future for what they join for, it's difficult. Although they're all very bright and very, very smart. And Accenture, for example, is an extremely big place. 750,000 people, is the third largest company in the world. And we do everything from, ERP to the special effects for Game of Thrones. And I'm not joking. We do the special effects for Game of Thrones. So the possibilities of finding your way in a place like this is only due to the fact that you have to make yourself known for something. So market yourself, know that failure is part of the process, embrace change, which is the most important thing, especially when you fail. You need to embrace the fact that you failed is not a rejection, is a redirection. So you have to go somewhere else. You have to aim somewhere different. And then go on, always go on. You have to be like the sharks. You have to move, because if you stay, you die. Your career goes down. Your reputation is not as well known as before. So you have to keep moving and keep posting on LinkedIn, keep networking, keep going to events like this one, and things change. Things would always change automatically if you do this kind of stuff. If you keep moving, things change. So the way that I kept my people motivated was telling them those kind of things, trying to be a little bit of a failure coach and keep them motivated about the fact that they're super smart and they will find their way 100%.
I love that. Failure is a redirection. Elizabeth, how are you creating safe spaces to allow for that experimentation, to allow for that failure to happen with the next generation of young leaders?
Yeah, I think you first have to have that mindset, right? Of like, okay, what we're doing is unknown. We have no idea what we're doing. We're going to actually keep on running these experiments. And so we just actively say the words experiment. We're going to run this experiment, we're going to learn, and then we're going to take that knowledge and then redirect it into our next experiment. And so if you keep on having this curiosity as you approach all of your business activities, even on this is the deck that we're going to use with this customer. What did we learn in that? Was it where we're communicating clearly? Did they understand what was going on? What kind of questions did those evoke from our customers? Okay, let's use that learning to improve the next deck or improve the next software meeting. Okay, was it really clear on how we describe what we want out of the script? Did we get everything that we want? Were we too ambitious? Were we not ambitious enough? Did we have, so again, just approaching every single thing that you do with curiosity, as we just heard before, is just such a great principle. Knowing what our North Star is, we also have, business principles of like, what is this entire thing trying to do and achieve? What are we trying to unlock in the new world? And then what are we also trying, what are those promises we keep for each other? What kind of, value system do we have so that we can create that system of safety, of experimentation, of, again, being humble enough to know, of saying, hey, I don't know something. And when you foster that, people are more willing to tell you when they don't know something or when something failed, because then everyone's on deck to go ahead and help solve that. I think if you keep on saying, well, you have to be the expert in this, you have to know everything about that, and you always have to be 100% right, then you get that lots of other characteristics that come out, behaviors such as like hiding or not being transparent or something else. But if you create that, fostering that environment of like, hey, we're trying to do this to understand truth, and we're really trying to fix what's wrong with the status quo, then you get more of that engagement from people. And yeah, sure, you can still have some confusion, you can still have some tension, but that's so much easier to address in an open environment where people feel safe, that then you can do that next experiment and put those learning lessons to that next thing that you do. And so again, just how we approach everything. Everything's a draft, and this is what we put out today, because the faster we put out drafts, the faster we get information, the faster we can get to the next draft. And so we're never done. We're always just in process, and you just keep that machine going as a flywheel effect. That the more you create that process, the more stronger you can get, the faster the momentum is between all the turns and the learning lessons and experiments that you can do. But you just create more of a laboratory than sort of like a final outcome. The final outcome never exists because it's always just a process of learning.
I love that. In my organization, I work for Lime. It's the world's largest micromobility company, but it's still only 5 to 7 years old. So there's a huge environment to fail forward and to really create and innovate and be okay with that. Across larger organizations, how do we manage that environment, and how do we create that lab type environment that Elizabeth was talking about across those larger organizations? And this can go out to any of you.
I guess I'll start because I work a lot with corporate leaders right now, and I've seen this micro environment created a lot with innovation teams and probably with studio teams, and oftentimes that's usually the point of entry for a lot of new technology, even startups. And I think that's a great place to start. Obviously you don't want to get weighed down by too much of the politics or bureaucracy of the larger organization. And it also helps provide this entry point for a lot of the new tech and new companies to come through, because there is generally more willingness from innovation teams and studios to engage. But I think at some point you also have to understand how to plug yourself into that larger organization. And I go back to like examples of what we did with drone delivery, but even with Alexa and some of the new tech. So you have to figure out where you're going to plug, which fire hose are you going to plug into, and how to get to scale eventually. And figuring that out requires a lot of that early upfront discussion as well. And I think, like as humans, you need to relate it back to what people know. And with something that seems innovative or far-fetched, you have to kind of create those pathways for people to understand, okay, well, this is a supply chain solution. It's not, don't think of it as drone delivery, or don't think of it as some crazy like sci-fi thing. It's just another digital assistant that you might have in your house, or a communication tool. So trying to relate it back to what value they have today from an existing system or technology, and then how it can be better enhanced by this new technology. And bridging those gaps really helps in that discussion with large organizations that I found, and helps you find that entry point so that you can bolt yourself on to the right organization, the right systems, figure out what APIs you need to build.
Thank you, Jung. Well, this has been an absolutely amazing conversation. You're all phenomenal leaders. And so, before we wrap up, in 30 seconds or less, or a tweet or less, or X or less, what is one piece of advice that you wish you had heard at the beginning of your career as we wrap up here?
Don't follow your passion, follow what you're good at.
Spicy. Hot take.
Because people will pay for it. They won't pay for your passion. They won't pay for you DJing or play music or dance on stage. They pay you for providing value. Very important.
Well, this is what the Frontier Collective is all about, having some hot takes on stage here. Elizabeth?
Yeah, I think for me, it's okay to fail projects. It's okay to have business go awry. But the number one thing that I would suggest is always make sure that your relationships with the people that you do business with are always solid. And always be truthful and honest, and try to create great relationships with people, because those will endure past what company you're part of or what project you're working on. that's what matters in business, because business is a people-to-people thing, and increasing those connections and those relationships are what matter in the long run, and that's how you build your career.
Exactly. Yeah. I think it'd be, what is it? Don't ask for permission, ask for forgiveness within certain guardrails. And as long as you're not going through a one-way door, just go for it. No one really has all the right answers, so prove them wrong.
Incredible tidbits from some phenomenal leaders here. Everyone, round of applause for your panel. Thank you.